Hey traders, welcome to another crypto market update. This is going to be just talking about the different alts that we can see. We're going to go over from mainly the 4-hour and hour chart because we did see a lot of volatility to the downside where a lot of alts have been bleeding pretty hard. Some have been falling like bricks, some have been holding up a little bit better, but overall we have seen the price move to the downside. BTC has fallen below our major level of support, as we can see on the 4-hour chart. We've already talked about this in detail on the BTC market update that we had a little bit earlier today. And overall, as a quick sum up, we are looking for the lower high to come in, validating the previous support as a new level of resistance. And that would definitely mean that if that does come into fruition, we will need to see the prices of these alts come back and retest zones. And we do have some potential opportunities for zones of confluences with a descending zone that we will get into. Dash is a potential opportunity if we see a horizontal zone. Looking at TRX as a potential opportunity as well, but we'll go over that within the video. So first things first, let's go over Ethereum, and then we will go over the different alts within the market. Also, we are live on TikTok, so if you are watching on YouTube and are on the go, or would just like to go on mobile, or would like to go on TikTok, we are live there as well. And you can ask both questions on TikTok and YouTube. So getting into Ethereum, we did break down below our major key level of support, which is around 246. We see a very nice consolidation zone give us clear areas of support and resistance that we could see. We're at our major zone of resistance. Well, not major, but like this is the major zone that we see, the mid-range area, where it was a previous structural floor, which is now going to be our previous ceiling for a potential consolidation if it's a large consolidation. But we do see it was a previous resistance that we've held before, so it could be a potential level where sellers are going to be located. And then talking about the buyers, so it's going to create a channel for us. We have an area where there's going to be lots of buy pressure within around the 218 range. We can see that right around there. There's going to be a lot of buyers at this area. So then, like we can see, there are wicks protruding to the downside, indicating buy pressure within the market. So then the price is currently at the high here. Looking at the 1-hour chart, decreasing buy volume, which is good. We'll get into the smaller time frames. Actually, let's just get into the smaller time frames right now because it just makes sense. So we do have Ethereum here on the smaller time frames. So looking at this is the 1-hour chart, creating these lower highs and lower lows with a strong push to the downside, and we are getting a slight pullback here. And the major zone that we would want to see is the 246 area. But thinking about that, we'll look to our next area right here, which is the 5-minute chart, which is showing the exact same thing on Ethereum. So just getting rid of these. This is the 246 area that the price will be potentially holding as a strong level of resistance. And we're just going to put this area like so. So now, and then we'll just make it red. So this is going to be an area of supply where we know sellers are going to be located as like a final zone. And we see the price break to the downside right now, and we had a consolidation period right here where there was more buy pressure in the market than sell pressure in the market, which would then be a volume accumulation phase. And then now we're in our markup phase, kind of coming up towards the larger structural resistance. Let's just go like here. Go like this. We can see like that zone right here, 246-ish is 246, somewhere around there. So we can see this high here was this high right here. So we're kind of encompassing a larger area. But we can see it is a pretty important zone that we have to understand. And it's also in a confluence with the descending zone. We can see with the two lines intersecting close together. That is where our potential area could be. So we could see a climb continue here. And, if we are still climbing, we have a pretty good amount of distance before we start seeing the resistance. So on the 5-minute chart, we could look for potential opportunities for a continuation pattern. If we see a descending zone with like a wedge or symmetrical triangle, ascending triangle, or a descending triangle, something that gives us a nice price action pattern with more buy volume and sell volume, you know what the criteria is. Or if you don't, we talk about it often. So, and we're going to make a post about it on our Instagram. So That's what we're looking for. Some continuation pattern from this area to a potential resistance area, which is going to be around 245, 246, which is around this area. So that's the outlook for Ethereum, and we'll keep everyone updated as time goes on. Just making sure that it's still live streaming on our YouTube. Link is the next one. Same story with Link. We see a strong level of support here. Let's get our arrow. Strong level of support here at around $3.80. We see it buy back multiple times, and then we do have a minor level around here that we do have to keep in mind of. But and then we see the price range above a zone, creating another horizontal channel, which we can see where buyers and sellers were fighting, and then we see lower highs and then a horizontal level of support that held, and then once we broke, we got a pretty strong aggressive move to the downside, and then we've been making a pretty clear healthy move to the downside where we're making impulse and corrective pushes back down. And now it looks like we got an area where buyers are going to be located potentially because we see a lot of wicks to the downside. We see the buy pressure increasing. We do see the sell pressure increasing as well. So that is something to consider because we know that buyers are present, but sellers still have confidence and still are in majority. They're holding the higher amount of confidence because it's a clear downtrend. And this current area where we're holding right now, $3.80-ish, is now our level of confluence. If we are able to consolidate, if we move this trend line a little bit further down, we'll get an area of confluence where there's going to be double confirmation that sellers are in the area. So that's the outlook for Link. And then looking at the potential for shorter term time frames, thinking about that zone, we can see back in, I guess, 2 days ago, previous level of support, very well respected, turning into a new level of resistance. Very, very clear, well respected zone on the chart, and we're at this area right now. This trend line is not as super important, but I'm looking for market structure. So we see a pretty well respected resistance turning into a new level of support. Let's just even take this away. So what I'm looking for is the market structure to shift, which would mean that the market has to make a lower low. So it would have to make a low here because this support is now the consolidation level of support. And then we're looking to enter on the lower high to form the market structure lower high, lower low formation. Also, I'd like to see decreasing buy volume, which we sort of are seeing. I'd like to see when we do make that lower low and lower high, I'd like to see increasing sell volume and then again decreasing buy volume, which is a potential candle that is not going to give me any buy volume, like a no demand, which would signify that there's a lack of demand, which would obviously mean that there's going to potentially be a move to the downside, signifying more supply in the market. And that's the overall trade. We do have a ascending trend line here. Could be a potential play because we have 1, 2, 3, and then it's kind of holding it right now for 4 levels of making it a dependable zone, but I don't love how ascending it is. I kind of like a little bit less ascending zones. I'm not going to squish the price action like so. So we'll see how it goes. The main thing we're looking at is the market structure and the VSA, volume spread analysis. So we'll keep you updated, and that is the overall analysis on Link. Now going over to XRP. I'm going to get some water here, and then we'll go on and talk about the 4-hour and then the hour chart. So, on the 4-hour, we rejected pretty hard off the 2235 range, and then we have a pretty strong resistance around 2463, right around here. And we're right in the middle of the range, so we are definitely not wanting to enter any positions just yet. If we come closer to the resistance there and then hold that level and validate that there's levels of sell pressure and then we reduce buy pressure, then we could potentially look to enter for a short once we get that validation, which would be around here. We see double confirmation with sell pressure coming in 2 times. And then if we come back for a 3rd time, that's a pretty dependable zone that we could rely on. And then if we are able to see a reduction in buy pressure and an increase in sell pressure within that area, seeing that shift in supply and demand, then that would be a potential opportunity for us that we could capture for a short as well. So that is the opportunities for XRP. We could move to a downside here and then get some entries here for a potential long, but I definitely don't want to fight the market. I'm really only looking for potential opportunities for shorts. I don't really want to be looking for longs at this point in time in the market. So looking at the 5-minute chart for that, we're not going to look at the 5-minute chart for every single one, but these are the most liquid, easiest tradable assets on Binance for day trading, short-term trading on the 5-minute chart, in my opinion. So we got our zones here. We got a strong move to the downside. And then we got quite a bit of buy pressure. We do see a lot of sell pressure within the market with decreasing buy pressure. But we climbed up to the resistance zone, but we see that there's not a lot of buy pressure on the way up, signaling that there is a lack of buyers in the market, and it could just be the sellers taking a breath before the next wave comes in. The market has to take a breath. It has to go in waves. It's not going to go in a straight line from A to B. So, this could just be a continuation, pull back before the next move to the downside. So we want to keep that in mind. We currently don't really have any signal that it's making a move to the downside. We're still making higher highs and higher lows, not really seeing any indication of sellers just yet. But what we would be looking for is a potential break in a support and then a hold as a new level of resistance, and then also seeing the volume change from volume accumulation to volume distribution. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And then we're not really seeing any ascending trend lines. We could draw one like so. Let's get this zone here, which is not as ideal. I think I would like to see the price change in market structure and then kind of break out of this consolidation zone, because to me it's just a little too early to tell where this trend line is going to be. 2 touches is not very confirmed. I'd like to see at least 3 or 4 if possible. So we will see how the price reacts when it does get to that level, if it does pull back. And then if it respects it 1 or 2 more times, then we can potentially get an entry here and then look to get some sell side exposure for an entry kind of at the highs here on the pullback. And if we do get stopped out and the market comes all the way back to the 2439 range, which would be around here, right around here, if we get the price to come back like so, then we could use that as a potential short as well. We're definitely looking for shorts. We're not looking for longs at this point in time. So theoretically, you could get an entry from the low here to the high, which would be a 4.2% gain. That's a pretty significant move, especially if you're risking maybe 1 or 1.5%. That's great risk rewards. But at the end of the day, counter trend trading is pretty challenging. Unless you're getting a really, really nice price action pattern here, then obviously it's worth taking it, because a 4-to-1 or 3.5 or even 3-to-1 is a great risk reward that you should be taking if it's a great setup. So we'll see how it goes right now. But if it does hold below this zone, and also on a side note, the 1 hour just closed, so we will get some buyers and sellers entering the market. It's a pretty significant close when the daily, the 1 hour, and the 4 hour close. So just a tip there. So we are seeing some entries come into the market. We see some sellers entering initially, or buyers getting out of their position. Overall, we see a shift in the market start to come in. So that is XRP. And then we'll move on to the next pair, which is TRX, which is, in my opinion, not as in an ideal situation. Like, you could completely say that it is, because there's a level of support here, but a lot of the coins are in very similar situations like so. We can see, and you can argue that that's a level of support, which you can totally argue and say it's true. And then obviously we see candle closures all at that level. You see a dump down, you see hesitation, you see a lot of sell pressure, and then the short sellers coming in and attacking the price down, hitting a key level of support, and then now it's bouncing back up with not much buy pressure coming in. Reduction of buy pressure. We did see an increasing buy pressure a little bit, trying to get the price to hold above the zone, but once it fell below, we're seeing a reduction in buy pressure from the highs right here, and then we're seeing a reduction in sell pressure from the highs of that massive drop right there. But within the consolidation, we are seeing some more buy pressure, and it's pretty hard to beat that candle. That's a bit of an outlier compared to most. And looking at the overall 1 hour chart, we can see it's definitely ramping up in terms of the sell pressure. Buy volume as well, so you can't argue that, where the buyers are starting to increase more and more. But within the recent pullback on the downtrend, we are seeing a reduction. Just something to keep in mind. We're not going to go over the 15-minute on TRX because we're not really going to be trading this. So just looking at Ethereum, Link, which is in a pretty good opportunity. Like we said before, I am looking at it as we speak, or as I speak. And then also looking at XRP, which is an opportunity as well. A little bit less, in my opinion, compared to Link. Link's in a really, really good spot. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. So that is those alts. And then we will move on to the next pair here. The next pairs, we see BNB here. Just below a major structural resistance we see right there, but then also just something to keep in mind, like looking on the 4 hour, it's nothing too important because it's where the price is right now is a pretty important zone. Like we can zoom back here and we can see it's a pretty key zone where we've had key levels of support and resistance, and with just that wick, I do think that entering at this point in time without seeing any price action confirmation is a little bit sketchy. We should see key level of resistance. Support, resistance, not really hitting it, but resistance, and we can clearly see a resistance right here, and then we see a long wick kind of hitting this level right here. So we can see that there's a lot of buyers in the market. The volume is actually pretty even within the recent price action, even though we saw a massive move to the downside. There's not as much sell pressure as what we saw in some previous moves, like we saw like here. So there is a bit of a reduction in the amount of supply from the amount of the actual move we had. Like, look how significant a move we had. And there's actually not much sell pressure coming into the market compared to what we saw. So for me, that's telling me that there is, there's just no there's no buyers in the market. That's why it's so easy for the price to fall, because if there's buyers, it holds up the price and it'd be harder for the buyers to enter the market. But I'm sure a lot of people entered within that consolidation, because we can see every single person who entered after February 6th is now in the red. Guaranteed, right? We know that for a fact because it went all the way up 25% and then now it's back down. So there's a lot of people that are now in the red after that move to the upside, and this would kind of initiate the FOMO, where you get a solid push to the upside, breaking a resistance, and then you get the FOMO to kind of kick in. So definitely a lot of people are selling at this point. Not a lot of confidence in the buyers, but we are nearing this level from around $18. Let's say $18.20 to $19 is where a previous level of resistance was. Even looking at the larger time frames, we can see a very, very strong level on the chart. On the weekly here, not going to the weekly with all of them, but we can see right here, strong level of resistance, new level of support. We see wick right there, and then we see it turned from a support into a resistance into a support, and then it was a resistance right here, and now it's potentially going to be our nice level of support. So that is a potential level of support, or at least a bounce area. So we do want to be cautious. It's not like we're kind of in a mid-range zone where we don't really have any levels to work with. We are at a pretty key level within the price action. So something to keep in mind, we are below it, but this is only in the hour chart. On the 4 hour, we are seeing a wick down below it with 54 minutes left. So looking very, very, not looking good for a short if the 4 hour closes like this, basically. I don't want to say bullish. I was going to say bullish, but I can't say it's going to look super bullish. But it doesn't look like a great opportunity for a short if the market holds that 4 hour close. But looking at the candles here, we could draw in a couple trend lines to make a bit of a zone, like we can see here. Like we could draw in that trend line to create a bit of a zone where we have a level of confluence, where we have a descending zone and then a horizontal area, both seeing sell pressure within the market. I'm just trying to make it work here a little bit better. I think that's gonna be it. It's not really a perfect trend line. I think I'm gonna leave it there for now, and I'll see how the price reacts to this level of supply. If We see not much buy volume come in. Obviously, that's a pretty good indication that there is a lack of demand. And then going to the next one, ADA. Looking at the move to the downside, we broke a structural support there. Taking it back to the 4-hour. Definitely broke major levels of support. This is kind of the last one that I can see right here. So at this point, we're pulling back, and I think it's safe to say that we should wait until we pull back to a point where we have a valid area where we could have potential sellers coming into the market, which would be this zone here, this gray zone, which is around 0.0522. That would be a good entry for a potential short if we do pull back to that range. Look how much sell pressure is coming into the market. That's a significant move. Looking at it, if you really wanted to enter right now, if you wanted to be a little safe, you're looking at a potential risk of like over 7% if you wanted to enter. So you definitely, or at least for me, makes sense to be a little patient within this market. But we do see the sellers are starting to come to the market with Chainlink breaking this ascending support. XRP also looking like it's coming down, but we'll keep everyone updated here. So the next pair we're going to be looking at is MATIC. So basically what I want to see is the price come back and test this nice previous level of support as a new level of resistance. That's all I'm looking for MATIC. Not going to get too much into it. Too much risk here. I want it to come back all the way here. Not much more to talk about on that. Very simple. And looking at Chainlink, look at that pretty strong rejection on the hour chart. Looking at the 5-minute, we do see that it's potentially going to break our level of resistance. Potential entry here for a short. Looking at BTC on the 1-hour, I think that it depends on how this candle closes. If we see a very limited amount of demand coming in, could be a nice no demand candle for another move to the downside. But if we see the buyers slowly still continue to come in, we could see the consolidation continue to go sideways. So we want to ensure that we're not just entering randomly. We'll want to really make sure that the breakdown from higher high to higher low to then consolidation to lower high, lower low is present before we look to enter. So last thing we're going to do is EOS, Litecoin, and Dash, and then the analysis will be complete. So same thing with the 1-hour chart with many other coins. Let's just take it back to the 4-hour. Taking this away. Don't really need any of this anymore because not really relevant with the current price action. We will probably want that sooner or later, or probably later rather than sooner, but it's a pretty well-respected zone, and we'll probably touch that zone again, probably get some sort of reaction at that area. So we're basically right at our major structural level of support. We see a very key zone within the price action. Definitely too early to say we're going to long, but we'll see how the price reacts to these levels here. Just made a move to the downside, and we're going to probably draw a descending zone yet again. But we're going to see how the price reacts to potential consolidation. Like anything, we got to see the price make lower lows, lower highs, consolidate, and if we're wanting to look to enter, we got to see the price make higher highs and higher lows, or lower highs and lower lows before we look to enter to kind of confirm the trend shifting again. So right now, too early. If we want to look to enter a short, we need double confirmation of injections of sell pressure coming into the market. Now, with Litecoin, broke the major level of resistance. I think, like we said before, look at the 4-hour, look at that massive wick to the downside. I don't want to be entering short at this point in time because of the massive rejection off that resistance. So if we do get on the 1-hour to pull back to enter around here, looking at the smaller time frames, that's a significant move of 10% for a pullback for an exhaustion phase. And then looking at the larger time frames, we could be entering from the pullback at $68 all the way back down to $62, and then beyond if BTC does want to dump some more. So that's the play for LTC. Might actually put that within the small time frame setups that I have here because that's looking like a good potential, but maybe a little bit later. And then the last thing is going to be EOS. Great move here. We talked about it yesterday. Had some nice ascending trend lines that broke initially, that right there, and then we had a consolidation and then a massive move towards the downside, hitting a strong level of demand. which is going to be right around here. And then now, like every other alt, basically, we're going to see if it's able to hold. It just made a very strong move. Like we can see here, it makes massive moves, and that's where we try to capitalize. And then it has to consolidate, it has to breathe, and that's where we see the price action patterns. That's where we see the supply and demand shift, and that's where we kind of see and enter the market and understand how we can capitalize within the next major impulse move. So that is the altcoin analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave a comment section or leave a comment within the section. And until next time, happy trading.